Welcome to part 2 of our analysis of the Twin Flames universe cult members finally speaking out and having their voices heard. Today, we are going to hear about what these followers thought about the docu-series featuring Twin Flames universe cult leaders Jeff and Shalia. This is another fun one, so sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh Erin. Hi, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cults, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. I post 2 or 3 videos every single week on one of these topics, so if you are into this sort of thing, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you here. We're jumping right in again today, right where we left off, and this is where things get really interesting. So let's go ahead and get started.
I just want to kind of start off with the elephant in the room, if you will, the question of, how we all feel about Twin Flames universe being viewed as a cult, or being called this cult that we've seen in the docudramas and throughout the media recently.
I think first, no, we're not a cult. Like, that's just the first thing. I think that what we saw in the media was just a salacious attempt with cherry picking thousands of videos to get particular moments to tell a particular narrative. That just really didn't tell our story. I mean, if you look at what came out, it really didn't even involve anyone that wasn't a handful of people. There are thousands of students in TFU. There's only about 5 to 15 that are utilized in the particular documents, or docudramas is what we like to call them.
Okay, but there's only a handful of you all sitting here right now sharing your story, so why should we believe what you're saying? It's unfair to say that these people's experiences and stories within this organization, when broken down by experts, looks and feels and operated dangerously similar to a cult, and it is a cult. There is a recipe for a cult. I think when people consider what a cult really is, they kind of conflate the idea, because the word cult is used towards anybody that has kind of a niche group, but or some kind of strange religious or spiritual belief. But the reality of it is there is a specific outline and a meticulous quality that all cults have, and they have very, very, very similar qualities. And when you break down Twin Flames universe, you can see all of the aspects of a cult. We have a charismatic leader, or 2 at the helm, one of which has claimed to be Jesus. And you can say all you want that wasn't taken seriously, or it was taken out of context, but at the end of the day, Jeff said it. And if Jeff wasn't trying to exploit people's vulnerabilities, he should have been moving with more intention as a leader of a group where people are paying him for his help. If you don't want to be called a cult, you need to move with intention. You need to do things that are not so inherently cult-like that every expert across the board looks at it and says, wow, this is a cult. We also have the BITE model. We have behavioral control, which is the B in BITE model. This idea that every time you have a conflict with someone, you have to do the mirror exercise. It is a classic tactic that cult leaders use. The mirror exercise, if you don't know, is technically a process by which you reflect on your feelings and your past behaviors. And as much as that is a great tool to use because it helps promote taking accountability, there are times that the mirror exercise is used to basically keep the leaders of this organization from being the people who you're blaming, because you're using the mirror exercise to effectively look at yourself and blame yourself for your feelings. You're feeling an intuitive red flag from one of the teachings. Oh, well, do the mirror exercise on that and try to understand why you feel resistance to this teaching, because this teaching is the most important and most valuable teaching. It's almost like a way to self-gaslight yourself, because you're looking at yourself and you're hearing what the leader is saying. You're feeling like this doesn't resonate. Something's off. I don't want to do this. This feels uncomfortable. And instead of the leader saying, oh, let me reflect on my teachings, or maybe phrase it in a different way for you to help you understand. Or if it doesn't feel comfortable right now, or it crosses a personal boundary for you, then you don't have to do it. Instead, these cult leaders twist it around and say, well, if you feel like a boundary is being violated, isn't that a you problem? Can you see the differentiation here? Can you see the distinction between those two processes? So don't act like a cult and try to control others' behavior if you don't want to be called a cult. The I in BITE model is information control. And we're seeing it right here with the first words out of this woman's mouth, who is a high up, one of the highest up. She's probably third in line to the kingdom throne of Twin Flames universe. And she is here moderating this entire discussion. And her first talking point is basically insulting the media as if the media had some ill intention. What does Netflix have to gain by telling these stories? And if they're false stories, there could have been a defamation lawsuit. So at some way down the line, we have to look at this a little more logically and start asking her these questions. This would have been a much better video if someone like me could have come in and asked them all of these questions, almost like forming a debate, to see if they could actually stand up to criticism and stand up to real questions. Instead, this has been painted as a smear campaign against Twin Flames universe, when in actuality, Twin Flames universe is trying to twist the narrative now again. And also, like I said in my previous video, remind us all a year later that people called them a cult. Stop acting like you have never had the opportunity to speak out. I think something that is very interesting about this entire thing, and it's where you can totally see that these comments are probably all supporters of Twin Flames universe or people who are already involved. And you can very much tell that this video was made for the people currently in the group, and the people in the group were most likely encouraged to go and share, like go and say, thank you so much for sharing. Like, we just really wanted to, we are so glad to hear our side of the story. We even have Jeff and Shalele up here saying, thank you to everyone involved for speaking up and allowing your voices to be heard. Your voices and experiences matter. And when you stand up for what's right, you give courage and strength to others that they might do the same in their lives. That's what literally every person in the docuseries was doing. It's so hard to like wrap my brain around how someone can like say that knowing that they hurt other people. What would have been better, Jeff and Shalia, is if this video had been, we were misguided. We did not mean to cause so much harm. At the time, we did think that we were doing good. But after taking some time to reflect, we recognize all of the things that we did wrong. We have changed how we operate our business. We have eliminated the twin flame pairing. We have eliminated doing any type of gender conformity or reformity, I suppose. If you really want to take accountable and you want us to take you seriously and you want to continue your business and stop being labeled as a cult, stop using the cult playbook 101. It's like these people watched How to Be a Cult Leader on Netflix and were like, let's do that. And then they're shocked when people call them out for being a cult. It just doesn't make any sense. Some of these other comments, I love this. Thank you so much for sharing. This community has nothing but so much love and support to give. I'm grateful to be a part of it. Oh my God, so happy to feel like we finally have representation and our voice is being heard and our real stories are being told. This video is literally a healing balm to us who have been working so hard in learning to love, to live with love. Thank you. Bravo. Thanks for speaking our truth. No one knows the pain we went through during separation. It's very crucial to join community. This was so powerful. I mean, it's all positive comments. And I'm not saying there should be negative ones, but it just feels like the only people who are responding to this, oh, except for this comment right here. One problem is that TFU criticizes every other TF teacher or even realized masters and their teachings. That is not open-minded and makes one question their own instincts. Otherwise, mere exercise is useful, although it is jungling in nature and not their copyright. Interesting. One is also pushed into buying expensive classes and forgetting their own truths to adopt the truths of Jeff and Shalia. It disconnects you from your own innate power and gives their knowledge all the power. Yep, that's what I say too. These people were given some tools from Jeff and Shalia, but the fact that they're so devoted to Twin Flames universe now, they can't even look at themselves and say, no, I did that. I did really hard work. It was really hard work to pull myself out of that dangerous spiral where I felt like I might want to unalive myself. It was really difficult to get to a point where I loved myself so much that I believed I could attract a true love into my life. All of this takes a lot of work. So to say, that's like saying like, oh my God, my therapist is my guru and I do whatever my therapist says and my therapist is the reason for my healing. Your therapist can help you in your healing, but you're the one at the end of the day that has to walk through life by yourself, living in your own brain and start recognizing when you are being toxic to yourself. You're the only one that can help you in that situation. You're the only one that can change habits in your life for the better. So to credit someone else with all of that growth and that work is dangerous to me. But Jeff and Shalia and others like them, other cult leaders, want you to consider them the reason you've grown, because then they can sell your story and exploit you further like they're doing with all of these people. This is an interesting little conversation. Someone says they've left up your comment, so maybe they are open-minded. I think they're leaving comments up for the moment to try to prove they're open-minded. We'll see how long comments contrary to their teachings are left up. I don't buy it. We generally only delete hateful comments. This is from Jeff and Shalia themselves. Critique is welcome, although I'm not sure many in our community would agree with the above. We are a global, inclusive community and draw strengths from a diverse array of spiritual teachings. The narrative Lotus Bloom above is communicating is untrue. It's just so interesting. Well, let's get back to the video because we are not even halfway in and I've been yapping for a while. Please ignore all my tabs. I think I have ADHD. Thank you. That's what my brain looks like.
And so I think that like it just, put us in the wrong light, in a negative light. That's just simply not true. And it's an incredibly beautiful organization, a wonderful spiritual community where like-minded people come together to discuss and expand spirituality and through their twin flame. And I think it's a beautiful thing to do. There's a lot of healing. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of...
Listen to those talking points. You know she got coached, baby. You know she got coached by Jeff and Shalele.
Space to explore yourself and figure out who you are and what you desire to do and what your purpose is and being supported in that. I find it to be a very loving community.
For me, when I found this information out, and like when I first found the community, it was funny because I was like, whoa, this is like what I've been looking for. Throughout my spiritual awakening, I was like awakening to all these truths that then I then found in Twin Flames universe that they had already kind of had the game plan laid out of what I was awakening and coming to realize, that I had this ultimate lover that, God really has this beautiful plan for all of his, people, all of his children here. And so off of that, I also was a lover of true crime back in my day, and I really enjoyed true crime, and I loved listening to true crime podcasts. And so I was really interested in cults. I thought they were so fascinating, and I was just really interested in them. And so when all this came out, it was really laughable to me in a way because I had already known such in-depth info about cults and true crime and all of this stuff. Like I knew the inner workings of them. And so it was like an absolutely like really surprising accusation because none of that correlated to what I was finding in TFU, like literally none of that. And so that was my piece of really what like, it was just a surprise. I was like, really, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like from someone who's, like just been into that area of life at one point in my life.
There's a difference between being into true crime and actually studying cults. This is partly why my channel is geared mostly towards different cults because I want I want there to be a place where we are exploring all the intricacies and inner workings of cults, because most true crime channels, yes, cults lead to true crime stories. Almost all of them lead to some type of disaster. But what I have found, and I'm just generalizing here, I have found that there is a deep misunderstanding, even within the true crime, I guess, community online and creators, who will talk about a cult and still victim shame and still victim blame and still not fully understand what a cult looks like from the inside. Because, and I'm not considering myself an expert, but I follow other experts, and Stephen Hassan is one, Rick Allen Ross is one, Yanyala Lynch is one. And these people are so knowledgeable because they've done so much research, and I think at least two of which, maybe all three of them, were in cults themselves. These are people that are paid by prosecutors to come to court to share their expertise about cults. So all of that to say that there's a difference between true crime content and cult content. You're exploring different behaviors. Are there similarities between the two? Yes. But this feels to me like the girl who got into a multi-level marketing company, but she's claiming that she used to be anti-MLM, but this company is just so different and it's not an MLM, and it doesn't work the same way as other MLMs. It's like, you were never anti-MLM. You literally didn't understand what was going on. I think if she had truly been educated on what cults was, or self-educated, she would believe that Twin Flames Universe is a cult.
Hear really how it felt for you guys when you saw the docudramas, and like, how did you all move through that?
When I first, saw the docudrama, I knew it was, completely a lie, because I've been a part of this community since 2018, and I've been at every live event we've had. I feel...
Here's the thing about cults also, I was trying not to pause so quickly, but also I want to say the cuts in this are really strange. There are some and I know I have fast cuts in a lot of my videos, but that's mostly because I'm trying to be mindful of the people who aren't watching my videos, but just purely listening to my videos. So I want to cut out any pauses or too many ums or repetitive words or breaths, just things that bother me and are pet peeves about me when I'm listening to podcasts or video essays. I try to be mindful about like cutting out any dead space. So that's why a lot of my videos have a lot of harsh cuts. And maybe they're doing the same thing here. I don't know, obviously. But some of the cuts are so sharp and like quick that I'm like, someone else must have been saying something here. But the thing about cults is there's always, fringe members, people that might just be exploring the YouTube channel, maybe have taken a class or two online. Then there are the people that are a little bit closer in the insular operations who are going to the workshops and teaching some of the classes. And as you get closer to Jeff and Shalia, you become more in their inner circle. And a lot of things that happen in the inner circle are secretive, are not shared publicly to the rest of those outliers on the outside of the inner circle. The docuseries, they both featured people who were a part of that inner circle. So just because these people who were a little bit on the outskirts didn't have the same experience as the people that knew all of the intricacies and the inner workings of Jeff and Shalia, but just because you don't see it or hear about it happening doesn't mean that it is not happening. And I'm going to repeat it once again. If we're to believe these stories, then you can't discount the other stories. Because how are we to know that you all aren't just lying? Right? Oh, they were all just lies. The stories that those people told were all lies. We're here to share our story. Well, maybe I don't believe either story then, because you're discounting those stories. So what makes you think that your story is valuable enough to hear? That's not fair. It's not fair for only one of those two experiences to be true. Two experiences can be true at the same time. An abuser to a singular person is sometimes the nicest person all the other people have ever met. And everyone's like, well, I've never had a problem with them. I've never had a problem with them. And their partner is like, please believe me when I say that this person is hurting me. That's what we're seeing here.
Completely better about myself since being here. I've gained friendships, that are a lifetime from being here. Yeah, I just feel like the docudramas were just a attack on everything that, we have all done to get to this place as a community and loved ourselves, to the position we're in to create something bigger than ourselves. And I just, at first I was just worried about what others would think about me, like family and friends from, outside the community. And there, like, a lot of them were very, worried about me, but I hadn't talked to them in years. So that was strange. And then, my family, there were things that came up with them that I was able to obviously just speak direct to them on, and we got through it.
This is like really heartbreaking to me because I just wonder if being a part of this group created a separation between him and his family. And then he's like, oh, well, why are they even checking in on me? Why are they talking to me? Well, maybe they haven't heard from you in years and they know that you're a part of this group and they see the docuseries and they're like, I just want to make sure he's okay. Could that be it? Maybe they love you and care about you and want to check in.
Through it because, my family knows who I am and they know that I know myself very well. And so they're not, right away they were like, okay, like, you're good, you're safe. And I think that was like the biggest issue with this, documentary, was that it was really just an attack on my being, is what it felt like. And I didn't know how to handle that at first. But thank God for the tools that I have here in this community. I was able to, overcome those feelings. So, yeah, that was my experience. I just felt like there was no question or understanding of who I was as a person. It was just, this is who you are. And I was attacked on social media. There was like big podcasts, like, watching my stories on Instagram, and like all this like attention was happening at once. And I just was like, what is happening? Like, I was so in another element. Like, I didn't know what was going on. And I didn't know how to, at first, have a say in that. So it was just better to block those people and just continue to, feel my feelings, and work through my emotions in that situation. And that's what I did. And, I feel like as a community, we've all come out of this on the other side so much stronger. And it's just showing us more of who we really are, and that we are good, and that this is something special that we all share in and that we all love.
At first, I had to kind of like prepare myself for watching it, just because I knew like that it was going to be released like at a certain date, and I had to like emotionally prepare myself, just because I knew what was going to be said was not accurate of like the truth of the community and my experience in the community.
I feel like with this whole question, like, there's a difference between watching a docuseries and not telling your cult that you watched the docuseries, and someone being like, hey guys, there's a stupid show out and it paints us like a cult. If you want to watch it, that's fine, but just know it's all going to be lies. If you're going into it mentally prepared to hear what you think are lies, then of course that's the reaction. You're not going from an unbiased perspective. You're watching the docuseries and you're from the lens of a cult leader. You're watching it, expecting it to be lies, so your mind isn't even open enough to express or share any alternative. So I think what they're trying to do here, this is the thing, cult leaders are very meticulous. And I think this entire video, they're trying to fight any allegations that they're a cult by proving that they're open-minded. So when they ask the question, when you saw the docudramas, what was your reaction? They're trying to show, like, see, we don't have information control. We actually encouraged our followers to watch the docuseries. We encouraged them. Then why didn't you respond to the docuseries when they asked you questions? You're complaining about lack of platform to share your side of the story, but media, journalists, they all asked for your side of the story. And it was partly you sharing your story and letting people into your home with cameras and recorders that showed people, oh, these people are sketchy cult leaders and they're exploiting their followers who are sad, depressed, seeking something, looking for help, searching, broke. And you're driving around in your Lamborghini, living in your mansion and showing it off online. And then you're complaining that people think that you're being predatory. Give me a break. Give me a break.
You know, I just had to watch it, and I wanted to because of course a bunch of people were texting me about it and like, oh, have you heard about this? Like, you know, this cult thing. So I was like, well, let me watch it, right? I don't want to be like blind to it. Like I'm like under a rock or something. So, yeah, it was just like interesting to watch how they would like with, you know, the scary music and stuff, how they would like kind of switch the story in a way. But yeah, it was a lot to kind of emotionally like process, because like I know I'm a person that likes to share about like Twin Flames on social media, and I have like a small little Instagram account with like 100 followers, and I still received like a bunch of hate comments, like hundreds of them. I was like, why? Like, you know, so that was a lot. And then of course having like family friends be like, oh, you're in a cult, you're in this, or like having your siblings like kind of being like, oh, did you see she's in a cult now? So it was.
This is why I think, I mean, it's a great example of like what not to do when a loved one or a family member is in a cult. You don't tell them outwardly, like, you're in a cult, get out. You can't do that. Because, and this seems to me, this is what happened with this young woman here. She got pushed further into the cult because that was where she was getting her support at this time. I would never advocate for hate comments. I think that that is absolutely ridiculous when people go do that, especially to someone who is inherently a victim of someone else's exploitation and manipulation. So this is really sad for me. And I wish people would recognize, like, telling someone, hey, you're in a cult, get out, that doesn't make them feel supported. In order to get someone out of a cult or a scary situation, the best thing to do is to ask leading questions. Because what you want to do is you want to trigger their critical thinking process. You don't want to just shout facts and opinions out at them. You want to help encourage their intuition to turn back on, essentially. Because in a cult, your intuition kind of slowly gets turned off. So she is being, what she feels like, attacked by people who she thinks should love her by saying, you're in a cult, get out of the cult. So what does she do? She turns to the people within the cult to gain that support again. And it's a sad kind of cyclical, dangerous cycle that a lot of cult survivors have spoken about, have gotten into. And I think it's a tactic that a lot of cult experts talk about. They say, like, ask questions, ask more questions. Do you really feel like this group has helped you? Well, don't you think it's concerning that there have been people who have claimed that they were encouraged to get a sex change? Or don't you think it's odd that people were like paired up by Jeff and Shalia? That way there's a dialogue starting to form. And even in that moment, in that conversation, you might not change their point of view or get them out of a cult. But when they're moved on in their day-to-day life, they'll probably start thinking, oh, that was an interesting question. Maybe I think differently about that. Maybe I should ask more questions. And then maybe they do start seeing the signs once they're back involved in the group.
Like what Ryan was saying, it kind of felt like an attack on my character, but of course it's something that you just have to work through. So thanks to the tools that we have here to like love ourselves and heal these upsets, I was able to just work through it and know that like I'm good, and yeah, like I'm not like brainwashed, you know? I'm just a regular person that has like developed and grown a lot. Like I've been able to heal significantly. So yeah, like I'll always be grateful for that, for this community. So yeah, I'm just grateful to be here and be able to like share the truth of the community and yeah, all the love that I've received here.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to me, you know, to have this whole, you know, array of accusations come out against all of us, right, in our own way. And the thing was that, also back to like my first point there.
Talk about taking it personally. And also, this is kind of a dangerous precedent to set because we often find that cult followers end up becoming perpetrators if they basically feel this attack. This is kind of promoting this us versus them mentality within the cult, because the only people that were being attacked was Jeff and Shalia. But everyone on this panel is saying that they felt personally attacked. They all felt like they were getting personally attacked. But it had nothing to do with you. I've never seen any of your faces before. I have no idea who any of you are. Nobody was personally attacking you. It's the organization that you're a part of. And because that's become such a huge part of your identity, you're taking it personally. And this is where you start to really, really see these panelists or people in a similar situation start really falling into that idea of us versus them. Everybody else is against us, and we need to fight back. And that's what they're doing here. And it also puts them in the position to like be the victim. Instead of Jeff and Shalia being the villain, they're villainizing everybody else because they're inherently the victims of a scheme, in my opinion, right? But now they're instead taking on almost this ownership. And if there were any like legal allegations made against Jeff and Shalia, and we have videos of these people effectively like being accomplices to that, like, oh, we were personally attacked. They said that we did this. No, we didn't. We didn't say you did anything. But now you've kind of like put the alarm up about yourself. Like, were you complicit? Do you have more understanding or inner workings? Like, do you have a better idea of what's going on inside this group more than what you're letting on? Because why are you taking it so personally?
Also back to like my first point there with like, it was so funny to me that this would possibly be considered a cult, because the only teaching that's taught here, and it's said time and time again, is love. Love yourself. Feel your feelings, love yourself. Feel your feelings, love yourself. Like, that's it. That's literally it. And the way that was, extrapolated on to create this whole like horror film was insane to me. I'm just going to say it, right? Because this is our conversation. We can say what we want to say here. It was insane to me. And so I'd love to hear,
Interesting that you chose the word horror show, because, yeah, I think the people that spoke in the docuseries felt like Jeff and Shalia made their lives a horror show. And if you really believe in love, if you really believe in compassion, then where is it for those people that spoke out and shared their story?
What other practices or what other like teachings that Twin Flames Universe has that we all practice and like have found really helpful that these docudramas got really wrong? Because I think that's really important to touch on.
Well, I feel like first of all, it's the mirror exercise. It's been presented as a tool to abuse yourself, basically, rather than something to love yourself. But if you try it out, I think most of us have tried it out at some point in time. Like we have experienced, all of us, some good things happening from that. So I think that's kind of like the first one. That's a big one that stood out to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember one of the first times I did the mirror exercise, it feels like, for those who don't know, maybe that are, interested in knowing what it feels like a wave of peace washing over you and washing into your heart in a place that was like feeling really bad. So would anyone like to explain how you get to that peace that I was just talking about, how you actually do the mirror exercise?
So with the mirror exercise, you're taking responsibility for that place within you that is hurt, that is upset, and you're just loving yourself there. You're going to that part of you who's upset, and you're giving them all the love they need in that space until you feel complete peace. So it's like an inner child healing, it's you going to that hurt part of you who needs care, who needs love.
This is so frustrating for me because, yeah, it sounds flowery and pretty and nice. That, yeah, I want to love myself through my pain. But it's also very important to recognize what is causing you pain. Are you in a situation that is toxic for you? Is that what's causing you pain? I really hate this spiritual idea that, like, no one else's actions or behaviors ever affects me. Get to a place so enlightened and spiritual that like someone can do something awful to you and you'll never have a single emotional reaction about it. And if you do, you'll take responsibility for your own emotional reaction or emotional feeling. We cannot control how we feel. We can only control how we process those feelings. If you get triggered and you start screaming, you can't control that you got triggered, but you can control that your reaction to that trigger was through screaming. With the mirror exercise, Just because you have an upset at something or something that has happened to you or something somebody said doesn't mean that you have to just hold that within yourself and not confront the situation. There is such a thing as healthy confrontation. When I have an issue with my husband, I have found the best way to process it is to confront it to him, and not necessarily in like an aggressive way, but just be like, hey, this happened. It made me feel a certain way. Can we talk about it and maybe it won't happen again? Instead of just sitting and festering and being like, I feel this way because I'm not loving myself, so I need to love myself so that next time he does something that hurts my feelings, I won't feel so much pain. That's not fair to yourself, in my opinion. That is actually the opposite of self-love. That's what I would argue, that doing the mirror exercise is actually the opposite of self-love, because if you truly love yourself, you're able to advocate for yourself. You're able to stand up for yourself, and you're able to recognize when you are having some kind of toxic behavior and take accountability for it and grow and change from it. Two things can be true at once. You can utilize something like reflecting on your actions and your feelings, and also use that reflection as a means to protect your space and recognize the people and the experiences that help you versus harm you.
It's not about blaming yourself or, attacking yourself or holding on to guilt. It's actually the opposite. And this tool is actually what transcends the bad feeling.
For me, in regards to the docudrama, which I found they just really didn't get right, is that they made it seem like the mirror exercise is a gaslighting tool, or like where you're taking responsibility for somebody else's behavior. And that's just simply not true. What the mirror exercise does is help you move through your feelings based on an experience that you had, not why somebody else did something to you or what happened, but it's generally about how you feel about a particular experience in your life, so you can empower yourself, move through those feelings, come into peace, and then act upon your life from that place of peace. That I think is really an important component to that healing modality.
I think that's one of the main things that the docudramas got wrong. But a lot of other things, include like
I just want to say, yeah, it sounds great when you say it like that, but there are also other tools that are similar to the mirror exercise, basically just called, ways of reflecting on your feelings that don't need to be tied to a cult. Reflecting on why you feel about something isn't something new. TFU didn't come up with the idea of self-reflection, and they just decided to call that process the mirror exercise, and then stole teachings from other places to basically say that they have this secret way of self-actualization and inner peace, when you don't need TFU to practice self-reflection and understanding and self-love. You just don't.
That's one of the main things that the docudramas got wrong. But a lot of other things, include like twin flame matchmaking, like no thank you. What else? Like there's these things about, with, transitioning even, which is a really sensitive subject that I would love for us to touch on.
Wow, you really just glided right past the twin flame matchmaking. I don't know if it happens. I don't know if it doesn't happen. I just know that you wouldn't like it. Are you trying to share your truth, or are you just trying to say, well, we did talk about that talking point, and then try to move on as if no one's going to recognize that you totally skipped a beat?
And so, yeah, maybe if someone here would like to share their story on, is that true? Does TFU promote transition coercion, or how would you call that, and yeah, really set the record straight.
Yeah, I have some things to say about that. Been in this community since early 2018. Been a coach since 2019. Never in my life here in the community have Jeff and Shalia ever talked to me about my gender identity at all. It's just been me exploring myself, basically. It's never been any discussion. It's just me loving myself into who I am, basically. Yeah, so for me, it's been like, I can kind of, with my personal journey, it's been sort of like I compare it to when you're, in the closet as gay, right? You're like, don't want to look at that, don't want to see that. I don't know, kind of like you're not wanting to approach that part of yourself, basically. And So that was basically my life before that. When my teenage year, I'll be very kind of very uncomfortable. I had a little bit of a deeper voice, and I was very uncomfortable with that. Like, oh, what if someone believes I'm a man or something, or masculine? Or I was extremely terrified of being seen as masculine at all. So I would go to lengths to be perceived as very feminine. So I would be wearing all the makeups and all the things and dresses and all that stuff, which is... But I feel like I was quite grown up when I came to this community, and I feel like it's just allowed me to experience myself, coming into my own experience, and I've taken my time with it. I've been here for a lot of years, but I've taken my time with my process, and I think there was also someone saying that, well, everyone is like forced to do these like surgeries and stuff. Personally, to date, I not have one gender affirming surgery, so that's just not my experience at all. I have not been forced, like I said, like Jeff and Shaleia never had a conversation with me about having all surgeries, or
Jeff and Shaleia maybe didn't have a conversation with you about surgeries, or I'm not sure exactly what conversations regarding surgeries they did have, but they did encourage people to like cut their hair and change their pronouns and change their names, and then assigned who was the masculine and who was the feminine within the relationship. How convenient that you're kind of using language like masculine and feminine instead of saying like, oh yeah, no one's ever told me to be transgender. I never resonated with being transgender. You're using the same way of speaking, the same like cult language that Jeff and Shaleia use. And that's kind of their workaround to saying like, well, no, we didn't encourage anyone to transition. We just encouraged people to discover whether they were true masculine or true feminine. And in my opinion, we all contain multitudes. Like some days I feel very masculine. Some days I feel very feminine. Some days I'm a mixture of both. Some days I need to channel one more than the other. It just kind of depends. And in the moment, I'm never feeling or thinking, ooh, now I'm in my masculine or now I'm in my feminine. There are just days where I need to utilize different pieces of how I am human. I think that that's something that's so beautiful about being human is we don't have to conform to any one specific role at all. We can accept the fact that certain instances call for us to monitor our behavior or change our behavior or adjust how we're presenting ourselves or our energy. How I present to you on this camera right now is probably going to be different than when I'm alone with my husband and we're just goofing around and making jokes. That's two completely different energies. But I don't want to sit and assign what those energies are. I just know that, okay, now is the time to make a video and I want the information to be communicated. It's very similar here. And I think that like, although it sounds like this person did gain a lot of clarity from being involved in TFU because there was a space where they were nurtured, but I also think it's sad that like it took TFU to create that space for them because maybe that was a vulnerability that could have been solved by finding a healthier group or a different organization. And once again, just because it's not your experience doesn't mean that other people haven't had a negative experience in regard to that. Again, if we're going to listen and trust your story, you have to acknowledge the other stories that were told. You can't just say they're all lies.
And I feel like I'm more myself now than I ever been, and if that's not something to be celebrated, I don't. So, yeah.
Well,
maybe Gabriel has some more insights here as well on his journey.
Yeah, I can share. I'm Gabriel. I'm a certified ascension coach with TFU. I've been in the community since, I think, July 2018, and an ascension coach from 2019 as well. I was guided to like explore myself, and that was about the extent of, hey, explore how you feel, who you are. And as I explored, I started to find things out about myself that didn't quite like fit with how I was trying to mold myself as a feminine, as a female. I didn't quite feel right in my body, and I didn't quite feel right in the way that there were just things that just didn't feel right in the way that I was expressing myself. And I was encouraged to just be myself, love myself, and do what felt good to me, no matter what the outcome was. And, you know, that was, from my experience, just exploring internally what felt good, how it felt good to express myself. And it led me to the conclusion that I was a divine masculine. And no one forced me to change my name, change my gender, change my have surgeries. All of that came from a natural desire to align with who I am. And it was, the more I healed into myself, the more I felt like, of course I want to be myself. Of course I want the way that I look and feel on the outside to match what I feel within. And yeah, that was just all kind of a process that I went through. I will say I did feel, safe to explore that in the community, which I hadn't felt safe to explore just with family and friends previously. It's almost as if I didn't even have the words or the space to explore that. But this was such a loving community that it was just like, be yourself and we'll accept you no matter what you decide. Do what feels good for you.
Yeah, beautiful. And thank you guys both for sharing. It's really a powerful experience, that you've had. And I feel like it's really nice to hear that side of the coin, which is, what we're all after, which is self-exploration and true self-expression in this community at TFU. And that's what we support. And, the other thing I want to touch on today is the whole matchmaking thing, which, I know it was touched on briefly in the docudramas and stuff. And it's really funny to me because personally, my twin flame and I, we grew up together. We went to the same high school, the same college. Our families knew each other, all this stuff. And we even had crushes on each other at one point in our life, like years before Twin Flames Universe even existed. And what brought us together wasn't being told we were twin flames, right? It was simply a spiritual journey of awakening to our true selves. Personally, I don't believe it's possible to be match made with a twin flame because, what a twin flame is it's someone that's created specifically for you. And no one besides God can create someone for you or, bring you together with them. So if anyone else would like to share something on that, that would be great.
But remember how Jeff said he was Jesus' second coming, and then he did assign, like there's visual and social proof that there was matchmaking happening. So just because it didn't happen for you or to you doesn't mean it didn't happen. We got to lean into the empathy side of ourselves. We got to start considering that other people had an experience in a space that was harmful to them, even if you were not aware of what was happening. Because it was happening to the people that were a little closer into that inner circle.
So if anyone else would like to share something on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I would say that certain people may appear to be like kind of grouped together, I guess, as twin flames. We had a kind of experience where we certainly didn't know that we were twin flames,
right?
And we certainly weren't pursuing each other, right? Like,
we were living together.
Others,
yeah.
Right? And so, it would have been, I would say, very beneficial for everyone involved if we were twin flames. Like, we're both very...
we are twin flames, but us knowing that
you know what I'm saying? Like, it would have been like...
it would have helped
a super it would have been like great
easier
if that were
if we
the
figured
case.
that out
You know?
Yikes. This guy just should stop talking. He's just... You're making the argument worse for yourself, sir. Okay?
We're both very, self-motivated and driven and professionals and whatever. And so as it happens, we are, right? And that's still something that, like, when we found out that we were twin flames, we had to explore for ourselves to see, like, it wasn't just like you're twin flames and like now you, you know, have to do this and that, or, you know, the storybook is written. Like, we had to.
This makes me so sad because I feel like my favorite part about getting to know a new romantic interest is that excitement feeling of like you just want to be around them. You don't know if they like you, but maybe they do. And you want to just like touch them, or you want to like laugh with them or joke with them or whatever. That's to me like one of the most exciting, that buildup, that like curiosity. And it feels like these two didn't get that opportunity. It feels like they were like, oh, we live together. We have a lot in common. We should be twin flames. So now let's explore that, which to me sounds like saying, let's force ourselves to fall in love and accept that now we are twin flames. It feels sad for me just because that like the beginning parts of a relationship are so exciting and so fun. And it feels like there's tension, but there's playfulness. Like, I just feel like that's like can bring you to life, especially if you haven't like dated in a long time. Like, I always think back to like when me and my husband were first starting, like, especially if I'm having a bad day or like we're in a little bit of a slump or haven't been seeing much of each other, or we're just doing life and you feels like you don't have time and it feels like everything's kind of like transactional, or you're both busy and you kind of are like passing ships at night. Those memories of like the beginning and like the playfulness and the funness and the tension, that's the stuff that that reignites that passion in me. And this is totally a personal anecdote, obviously, but it feels to me that some of these pairings just didn't get that opportunity to just like feel that instant connection with someone and be like blown away by it. Instead, it felt like, oh, we're kind of both here. We're spending a lot of time together. The universe brought us together. This must mean that we are supposed to be together. I'm not feeling like, oh, these two people like came together and had an instant connection and like nurtured that connection and like felt like they were meant to be together. I don't know. I just feel kind of not sad for them, but just like disappointed for them.
We had to work through a lot of things, and we really had to find it within ourselves, more so than just being told that that was the truth, right? Similar to a gender, like you can't just.
So what I'm hearing is someone gave you the idea that this was your twin flame and you were like, I guess I have to explore that because my guru told me that. That's just what I'm translating here.
Tell someone they're a man or woman and then they have to change, like that's something that they have to find within themselves and inherently want, right? Like they have to choose that. We have to choose our twin flame, even if we know who they are or not. Like, you have to choose that person and choose to work with them, choose to relate with them, and choose to move forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a decision.
Mm-hmm. Kristen, would you mind explaining to the folks on the couch how you guys met or what the situation was?
Oh, yeah. So Jason and I met in Twin Flame Ascension School. Jason started Twin Flame Ascension School first. I started a bit after. And we were both life students in Twin Flame Ascension School, and Jay was in Life Purpose class the whole time, and I came in very close to the end of Life Purpose class. And so through Twin Flame Ascension School and Life Purpose class, we kind of, like all the students, we talked a lot. And about when it starting to round to the end, we were talking a lot more. We were working with each other and doing a lot of our spiritual work together. We were also working in MAP together. Mm-hmm. And so, like, we really started partnering deep in MAP together. And then when TFAS ended, we really went deeper there. I needed a lot of help. So Jay moved in with me in Missouri. And we were just working on purpose. And then we found out that we should, we were guided to explore being twin flames. And that's how it happened.
Yeah, would you have
Being guided sounds like another way to say match made. But that's just my opinion.
Would you have explored that without that invitation?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think that I was having feelings. I was having attractive feelings towards Jason, but because I thought somebody else was my twin flame, I was, really sitting with that or putting a boundary up with it at the time. And then when I was invited to look at you as my twin flame, all that went away, and I was very, very relieved because who I thought what my twin flame was in another country. So that was a challenging component there for me. But I mean, what about you? You kind of had it in your mind that we were twin flames before I did. I remember you were on a jog or something, and you were like, "Oh man, I think we're twin flames."
I don't remember exactly. I just remember there was something came into my consciousness that like
I feel so bad for this guy. I don't know. I feel really bad for him. I kind of feel bad for both of them, but I know Chrissy's a part of like the predatory actions, so I have a little less sympathy for her. But my stomach is sick hearing him talk about this because it just feels disingenuous. Oh gosh.
the person I was pursuing was not, right? And I didn't know who was or what the situation was, but it was, yeah, there was a change there.
Yeah, 100%. I think when we met in real life in New York for the first time was like the biggest shift, because after meeting in New York for the first time, we basically communicated daily. And so like it was just a natural progression for us. I think that it was perfect for us because we had to work through a lot and really come into a foundation with ourselves in order to feel confident enough to move into a relationship with each other. And so I think our journey was perfect for us, just like everyone else's twin flame journey is perfect for them.
All right. Thank you, Jason and Chrissy, for sharing your story. It's really beautiful to hear how true twin flames come into union and harmonious union. And I would love to hear from Adam and Brianne and your story. I know it's really juicy as well. And yeah, how did you guys meet? How did you come to recognize each other as twin flames?
Yeah, Adam had reached out to me through Facebook Messenger, and it was 2018, right? And we just kind of developed a friendship from there. And I did notice that there was an attraction towards Adam, but at the time we were pursuing other people as our twin flame person. And so we had those boundaries up with each other. We were just respecting our journeys and, you know, what God was telling us at the time. And yeah, do you want to add a piece to this?
I feel like you held on more to your twin flame person than I did. I would like drop that as a opportunity. Well, I feel like I never met anyone who was so much like me. It was just like weird.
It's so interesting because like there was, I think, an argument. I can't remember if it was in the docuseries or if like Jesse Hersey talked about it in the interview with me. But there was this almost idea of like your twin flame had to be a part of twin flame universe. So it's really interesting to me that both of the couples we've heard from were pursuing other people. I would be very curious to learn if that was people outside of twin flames universe, and then they maybe scared them off with their ideas about twin flames and then kind of were forced to look at other people within the organization. That's just a speculation I have. I just think it's an interesting piece to point out here.
Like, whoa, how are we so similar? It was crazy. And I feel like we just got closer as we did our healing work and all that stuff. And we just kept, meeting in all those spaces.
Right.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, and I resonated with Jason's experience too, because I eventually come to the awareness through my healing that the person that I was pursuing as my twin flame, it was not the person. And so in that, I found a lot of relief in my heart, and I knew that God was going to reveal to me who he created for me, and Adam was on the back side of that. Yeah. And so then, everything quickly come to.
I just had Adam on the back burner waiting ready to go for when I decided that this person was my twin flame. This is so weird.
And everything quickly come together. As a result, we came in a harmonious twin flame union, and we got married shortly after. Yeah.
Very cool. Wonderful story. Yeah, and it's funny, as you guys are talking here, I'm just thinking about
But to be honest, I think these two are my favorite couple. They are very cute. They seem like they really like each other.
the logic behind it all, right? And The Bachelor actually came to my mind, and I'm like,
okay, like how many bachelor couples who are they're set up right in a way, like they're match made, they through this people, and okay, then you pick one. How many of them are still together? Probably like 2%. I don't know. But then when it comes to Twin Flames universe and the discovery of a true twin flame connection, they stay together, right? If they continue to do the work and they continue to love themselves and,
Cults love a good false equivalency. When you find similarities between two things that could maybe barely be similar, but are honestly so far different that you can't even make the actual comparison. It always blows my mind. It's like the comparison between like sugar in a banana versus sugar in a donut. Those are two different types of sugar. Let's not demonize both of them at the same time. It's a false equivalency.
They stay together, and you can't force that, right? You can't force a connection to be a true connection. And so I just wanted to add that piece to what everyone shared here. And it kind of brings us to the next piece. There's a few elephants in the room, so we're at the next one now. And this one is all about, Jeff and Shalia, our teachers. And really, I want to touch on, the way Jeff speaks throughout TFAS, Twin Flame Ascension School and Life Purpose class, and how, the docudrama has really portrayed him as harsh in a lot of instances. And Shalia as more of like this,
Oh, you mean like when he like would talk over her and not let her speak, or like the videos we saw of him interacting with her? Those ones that we saw with our eyes? This is so interesting because someone that was involved in the docuseries that I spoke to personally said that they were really frustrated because people kept painting just Jeff as the aggressor, the bad guy. And this person was like, Shalia is just as bad. She's not just a silent victim. So I'm really curious to see how they like twist this point around.
Meek victim, kind of, which we all know not to be the case because we've seen the, what is it, maybe 3,000 hours of classes that were actually recorded, and then like the 2 minutes of clips taken from them. So we know what actually happened. But yeah, let's just kind of dive into that. Does anyone have a piece to share there?
What the docudramas failed to see is that, or show, is that Jeff is actually just portraying the divine masculine in the most healthy way. And he's actually just showing us, how to be ourselves, right? As people. And everything that...
He's not abusive. That's just how he is. Guys, he can be whoever, like, let's just appreciate him for who he is. He's an abusive husband, guys. It's totally, and now I know I can be myself too, whether that means I'm abusive or not. I just love myself no matter what. Do we see how this is dangerous?
You see in the classes is just an expression of divine love. And he's very fun. He's very bold. He expresses himself from an authentic space. There's no hiding with Jeff.
In those instances where...
it seems like he's hiding now. I don't see him on the screen.
He is calling someone out, right? And that's what he's doing. And we all know he's calling out the ego in someone. Right. And the ego is fear. So he's calling out the fear within someone, and he's saying, that's not what you want. You don't want that fear. And really what I found it to be in my life and what I've learned is it's just discipline.
Is he calling out the fear, or is he trying to get you to stop your intuition from telling you there's a red flag, or stop your resistance so that you just do what he says? Ooh, I'm getting heated up. Oh boy, Erin, don't get too spicy.
Same way you discipline like, a toddler when they're about to burn their hand on a stove. You say, no, don't do that. That's the same thing you do with the ego. You say, no.
Oh my God, it's totally fine. He just talks to us like we're children. He's my guru. I listen to everything he says. He just talks to me and treats me like a child. Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Stop it. That is not you. You are love. You are peace. You are purity and innocence. And so, would anyone else like to share more on that? And maybe how you felt the first time you watched something like that happen with Jeff and Shalia while you were watching TFAS? Because I know me, I was triggered at points throughout TFAS because I was like, whoa, what's going on here? But then I watched to the end and got the healing, right? And that's what the audience watching the docudramas didn't get. They didn't get the healing piece at the end. They just got the and that's not what it was. So yeah, does anyone have a piece to share there?
Yeah, I can add in, listening to Jeff and Shalia throughout the classes, I found it incredibly relieving to see them just being themselves authentically. And like you said, calling out the ego. And I felt like I could really trust that and really relax into the relationship. And it felt, like you said, very healing. So for me, it was just, wow, they're being themselves completely. And I can do that too. So it was very encouraging for my own self. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love what you said there about being yourself, because that's really what they're role modeling, right? It's just pure authenticity and pure self-expression. And that's kind of like once leads me to touch on the point about Shalia, where Shalia throughout the classes may be seen as, quiet or something, or what was portrayed in the docudramas as like, this victim where Jeff's, walking all over her or something. But that isn't the truth that we all know. And if anyone would like to speak on who Shalia really is and, why she does carry herself the way that she does, would be really nice.
If you watch Twin Flame Ascension School, like Shalia always talks about how she just likes to kind of sit back and relax and allow Jeff to do most of the talking. So I feel like that's just her being herself. It's not that she's like being like shunned or something, or whatever the word may be. She's just being her authentic self and how she likes to relate to her like husband, her twin flame. So yeah, it's just, that's what I have to say on that.
When watching the classes, you can definitely see through the progression of them, Shalia will naturally take leadership in a class when she feels called to, when she feels comfortable to. And Jeff will sit back and just allow her to speak and be herself when she feels comfortable doing so. It's never you have to sit there and do what you need to do. It's really just she's allowed to express herself fully and completely in the way that she feels good.
Allowed. I think it's interesting that this is the word choice. Allowed. Jeff allows her. Okay. It's just the feminism in me wanting to say something.
And then when she feels good just sitting back, she's allowed to do that too. And he accommodates that. It's very harmonious in that way.
I think it's also about understanding twin flames a little bit and the dynamic of twin flames with one consciousness. And so the consciousness is speaking through Jeff for their union. The union consciousness is speaking through Jeff. And Shalia is holding space in a lot of that times. And then like you discussed, when Shalia takes the lead in their consciousness and their union, Jeff is sitting back and holding the space and grounding the energy. So there's a component of understanding the twin flame dynamic that just might not be there. It might be confusing a lot of people. And that's just something you can learn.
You guys don't get it. That's just how twin flames are, okay? Only one person is allowed to speak, and then the other person who was speaking allows them to speak when they let them speak. That's just the dynamic. The masculine is always in charge running the show, and the feminine always just sits back quietly and meekly and holds space.
Being involved in a healthy twin flame community and learning how to interact with your twin flame in a healthy way. On this particular area of ego and uprooting ego, it is not necessarily pleasant all the time. Uprooting ego is it's a spiritual component that we're doing in TFAS as live students, but it's not necessarily always pleasant. One thing to always remember is everyone was willing to be there. They chose to be there, right? It was all online, so everyone was choosing to be there, and we all knew exactly why we were there, and that was continuously discussed in the courses over time. Like we always knew what we were doing. They always would request permission.
Yeah, but if that's where coercion gets into. You don't really have freedom of choice if you're being coerced into being there. If you're being guilted out of leaving. If you're saying, this is a red flag, this is alarming to me, I'm concerned about this, and someone's like, well, do the mirror exercise, because that sounds like a you problem, because Twin Flames Universe doesn't do anything wrong. Please give me a break.
Do you really want to work on this? Is this something you want to look at? And if it was something really sensitive, they always checked in consistently if we wanted to go deeper and address it. So I don't think that there was any time that I ever felt uncomfortable about the way Jeff spoke. I actually felt relieved that he was so expressive and authentic. Like, I thought it was really cool he swore, because I was like, wow, like, you know, like, that's nice that, like, we can just be ourselves. And I found that very refreshing versus having grown up in a Catholic family. You know, I thought it was kind of refreshing to just, it was an example of just being your authentic self.
yeah, it really took the fear out of it, right? Like by just simply speaking to the fear, speaking to that ego, it didn't have to hide anymore. It could be brought into the light of love. And that's, what I experienced throughout watching the classes was even through these moments where students were going through something tough, it always led to deeper love, right? And to a breakthrough and to the next level of peace in their life. So that was really great. And personally, I'm a very driven, very motivated person. And I appreciate a leader that, and someone that's going to support me in becoming a better person and not coddle me. I don't need to be coddled, right? I don't need to be, my hand does not need to be held. I want to be shown what I'm doing so that I can fix it and so that I can align with more love. And so that's really, I feel like completes that piece. Is Jeff God?
Numerous examples that you don't see in a docudrama, that you don't ever hear about, of people, just leaving, and, it's like, okay.
All together, and she saw what, how it moved through upsets. She kind of felt a little bit more relief and peace, just knowing that I'm in the right hands.
I was looking up ego because I was like, I want to talk about the actual definition. And then I heard them ask if Jeff is God. So we're going to be listening to that too. Don't you get me wrong. What I've really gotten frustrated with in this video in particular is they're not using the word ego correctly. They're saying, well, ego is just fear. Ego is just fear. So that's what I was doing. I was looking up like, okay, well, how do you necessarily define the ego? Because I wanted to talk about it. I know what the ego is, but like I wanted to actually have something tangible to hold on to. And it's literally your sense of self, your sense of confidence, right? And I feel like the ego helped you decipher what you're comfortable and uncomfortable with. And if they're like, well, no. If your ego is saying you don't like this, it's just fear. So like, just do it anyways. You don't want fear to win. And it's like, okay, well, that is how we get into the coercion aspect of this, right? So I just wanted to touch on that really quickly because everyone has an ego. It's our sense of self. Our ego is speaking to us. It's kind of like a part of our intuition, in my opinion, like how I kind of consider it. So to say that every time you hear that inner voice and it brings up a fearful thought, it doesn't mean it's your ego trying to keep you held back or protect you. Sometimes it's creating a red flag for you. It is trying to protect you. It's not just fear, it's protection, in my opinion. So part 2 will be very, very interesting to jump into. That is for sure. Throughout watching this video, I've felt so many feelings. I've felt sadness, I felt frustration, I felt fear, I felt anger, all on behalf of these members. Because remember, at the end of the day, they are victims of being manipulated and exploited. And it really makes me sad, but it's really interesting to see this all playing out in real time with all of the knowledge that we have, not just from their group or about their group, but about cults and how we can analyze this type of reaction. It feels very, very much like DOS in Nexium when they started making their videos that were pro Keith Raniere even after he got arrested. So it's going to be a fascinating journey to continue going on. Let me know if there's a cult or group you would like me to talk about. Someone recently, or a few people recently asked me how to reach me. You can email me at letfresherin@gmail.com if you want to share your story or share a group that you'd like me to cover, and I will do all that research. So guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, your weekend, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Stay safe out there, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. See you soon. Bye.